Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to give it just a minute to allow people to continue to come in. All right, good afternoon. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Matt Chapman. I am acting in my capacity as chair of the subcommittee on model legislation for PFAS with NEWMOA, but I'm also the director of the Waste Management and Prevention Division in the state of Vermont, in the Department of Environmental Conservation. Thank you all for coming today. Just a little agenda setting for our conversation. We're going to start by giving a bit of a background on NEWMOA and then an overview of the model legislation. And this is an opportunity for the participants here today to go ahead and give comments. You can note that you want to give a comment by either raising your hand and using that function, or also by putting a note in the question function. And just for purposes of clarity, the draft model legislation doesn't necessarily represent any work group member or agency they represent's position, nor is it necessarily NEWMOA's official position. We're here to take comments and come up with a final draft for consideration. So just to sort of start off, for those who don't know, NEWMOA is the Northeast Waste Management Officials Association. It is a nonprofit corporation with a purpose to coordinate among New England's state waste management organizations. And I have provided a list of states who are a part of the NEWMOA. NEWMOA's board of directors last year formed a subcommittee to develop legislation banning PFAS in consumer products. The subcommittee met over the winter and developed legislation that is present and up for discussion today. It has been loosely modeled on aspects of legislation that we've presented related to toxics in packaging and also in mercury reduction. NEWMOA board has approved this draft legislation as a part of our spring meeting, and there's a 60-day public comment period on the draft legislation that is currently open and will close on June 29, 2023. So I'm going to go through and give some very high-level sort of key aspects of the legislation, and then certainly leave it open for comments after that. So the draft legislation defines PFAS as meaning the class of fluorinated organic chemicals containing at least one fluorinated carbon atom. It defines intentionally added PFAS as meaning PFAS added to the product or one of its components or precursors, or in packaging. So this is a broad definition of intentionally added PFAS that spans not only PFAS that is added to the product, but is present in its packaging or ends up in the product through the manufacture of that product. PFAS added product includes any product or commodity chemical that was manufactured after the effective date of the act. So this is intended to be a forward-looking act that contains PFAS that was intentionally added as noted in the definition above. And as I said, this includes both products and product packaging. So one of the key aspects of this law and why it's important to at least the northeastern states is that we're intending to collaborate and create an interstate clearinghouse that will coordinate work amongst the various states to look at the implementation of this law, the sort of registration and prohibition requirements that are contained within this law, and provide a common framework amongst at least the New England states and potentially other states who have an interest in partnering with us. So the first key aspect of the law is a notification requirement. It's proposed to be effective 2 years after adoption. It applies to all products containing PFAS that are sold within the jurisdiction that has enacted the law. It requires a set of information to be provided to the jurisdiction about what types of PFAS are being added to the products, and contact information for the manufacturer so that the jurisdiction can contact the manufacturer. Notifications are required to be updated when there is any change to the product. And a failure to notify a PFAS added product results in the ban of that product from sale in the jurisdiction. Sort of the heart or core of the proposed legislation is a set of PFAS product restrictions. It's intended to take place 3 years after adoption. The proposed legislation is a broad ranging ban that basically requires a ban of all PFAS added products, but it allows for manufacturers to apply for an unavoidable use by showing the following: that the product has a benefit to the environment, public health, or public safety, and any recycling product is deemed to have a beneficial use. You have to demonstrate that there's no technically feasible alternative with less risk to human health or the environment to the use of PFAS within that product. You have to show that there is no comparable non-PFAS product available at a comparable cost, and products determined to have an unavoidable use must continue to notify the product, label the product, and be involved in a PFAS added product take-back program. The law proposes to require a certification of compliance element. This is modeled off the Toxics and Packaging Clearinghouse. It allows both the Agency of Natural Resources and manufacturers in the supply chain to request a certification of compliance from any component manufacturer or downstream manufacturer. That manufacturer is required to provide that certification of compliance, basically tell people in the commerce stream as to whether PFAS is in the product, and they're required to update the certification of compliance if there's a reformulation to the product. Section 8 of the proposed legislation requires labeling of PFAS added products. This applies to products with an unavoidable use. So all PFAS added products are banned except those who've obtained an unavoidable use exemption. When the product or product component has a PFAS added component to it, it's required to be labeled. Like many other labeling laws that have been in model legislation that NEWMOA in New England has adopted, the label must be visible prior to sale and affix the product in a manner that will last for the life of the product. And the jurisdiction who is approving may approve an alternative labeling plan. This is similar to other legislation that has been passed regarding mercury product labeling. Another component to the law is for those products that have an unavoidable use exemption. It requires them to take part in a producer responsibility program to take back PFAS added products. Much like other producer responsibility programs, it requires that there be a public education element. There are performance goals for collection of PFAS added products, and requires appropriate management of PFAS containing materials for disposal. And then just briefly to go over sort of other elements of the proposed legislation, there is a set of model legislative findings that outline the health impacts of PFAS, its prevalence in products, and the necessity to focus on elimination of PFAS in consumer products. Section 10 has a PFAS-free product procurement requirement, which establishes a preference for the jurisdiction in purchasing PFAS added or PFAS-free products. There are a number of state-specific placeholders in the law that affect rulemaking, enforcement, public notification, severability, and the effective date. And lastly, Section 14 contains a program review element. It basically requires that on year 4 and 8 after adoption that the program be reviewed and a set of recommendations and for changes come forward to the legislative body within that jurisdiction. So just to sort of pause and close, the comment period for the model legislation closes on June 29, 2023. You can comment, you can see the information at the website that's present here. And we'd ask that you submit your comments and any recommended edits to the email address that's present there. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Martin to take comments from members of the audience.
Oh, thank you very much, Matt. And we did get one question from somebody asking if, you know, this recording would be made available on our website and the PowerPoint that you presented. And the answer is, you know, we will be making this available. So I'm now, for the purpose of, you know, raising hands for comments, we received one comment, or I think Robert Reimer. Let me see if I can locate you. I'm looking for Robert Reimer again. He was the first person to raise his hand. Robert Reimers, I'm going to unmute you and go ahead and make your comments, please.
Well, I didn't realize I did a question. I was having a problem getting into your website, but one question I would have on PFAS legislation and that would be, my concern is that the risk values are very low and that there's about 10,000 isomers of PFAS, but there's only about 200 to 300 that are fairly toxic. And the question I have would be, how, if we make really low risk values for something that's as ubiquitous as this, that would really limit the application of a lot of reuse and very good applications of wastewater and residuals and that in the environment. So how do we handle that issue?
Okay, you know, we are going to, you know, we're going to take that as a comment. Again, you know, there are going to be lots of, you know, questions here that are, you know, things that may be questions that are really comments that go to the approach. And so we're recording this as a comment, and we encourage you to supplement your views. Let's see. Our next commenter, I'm looking here. Okay, our next commenter is Matt Osicki. I hope I'm saying that correctly. You're self-muted. If you'd like to unmute yourself and provide a comment, now's your chance. You're going to have to unmute yourself. I've unmuted you, but it looks like you're self-muted. Okay, we'll come back to Matt in a little while. let's try Matthew Taylor. Do you care to unmute yourself and make a comment? Okay, Matthew, we're having a hard time hearing you as well. I note in the question box, you make two comments. Where is in the model legislation, is it limited to the scope of consumer products? I see nothing which specifically limits it to that. And then let me see if I can. I think that was the comment we got from Matt. Let's see who else has got their hand raised. Susie Hazen. Susie, are you able to make a comment?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. So I haven't had a chance to read through the legislation yet, but I will. So two questions. So for complex durable goods, things like automobiles, washing machines, motorboats, things like that, I'm assuming that reporting would be at the product level. And then does this propose that then there is a take back program that the seller, say, of a motorboat would have to take that motorboat back from the consumer when the consumer was done with it?
Okay. There are, there are take back provisions in the legislation, section 9, and we will take your comment on that.
Okay, thank you.
I noted that we got a question about where is the, where can you find the draft legislation on the NEWMOA website. It's right at the top at the banner, and it's also, if you click on the cover page to areas, there will be a section on PFAS, but you should be able to find it right at the top of the banner there. So we'll looking for other people with their hands raised. Okay. We're still looking for others. I will note that Matt Osicki wasn't able to get his, his microphone unmuted, and but he says, as I read the definition, it would appear to cover Teflon coated cookware. Is that the intention? And again, the definition is broad. Julia John has a hand raised. Would you like to make a comment?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so I was just wondering about the PFAS definition in the model legislation. What was like the rationale behind it being pretty broad? I know other states, a lot of states have been using that definition, but the EPA uses different definitions. So I was wondering if you could speak to
Yeah, again, this is an area where we're going to encourage you to make comments if you think it's either too broad or not broad enough. We, you know, the goal is indicated in the beginning of the legislation is to, you know, get PFAS out of the environment. You know, we're obviously interested in people's views on how, you know, how we did with the definition. So we'll if you care to amplify your question with suggestions in your written comments, we'll encourage you to do that. Abigail Stein, I hope I'm saying that correctly, has your hand up. Would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, a question. Having not submitted comments in a NEWMOA process before, I'm wondering about the expectation for how the submitted comments are going to be processed, acknowledged, perhaps integrated into final model. Is there going to be a record of feedback? How is that side going to work?
Sure, great question. And you know, we are using the public comments at NEWMOA, you know, email address to submit comments. You know, we are going to gather the comments up, and obviously, as Matt indicated, there is a work group that you know, worked on the draft legislation. You know, NEWMOA staff will work with them to consolidate the comments and to you know, identify the areas that have received comment and take a look at that feedback in terms of determining whether or not to make adjustments to the draft legislation. And so we will be gathering that. You know, we will attempt to, you know, we'll certainly attempt to have all of our the comments we receive posted. But, you know, the main thing right now is to make sure that we're getting the comments from all of you. And looking to see other hands. Looking to see, I have, I can't seem to unmute Catherine Palin. I don't know if you're muted.
Yes, I'm muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Go ahead with your comment, please.
Yeah, my question was, I believe that the draft legislation allows only 3 years until a complete phase out of PFAS is recommended. In most states that are looking at this right now, they're giving much more time. I was wondering if anybody from your team had commentary on how you landed at 3 years for this proposal.
Yeah, again, this is an area that we're interested in comment on. You know, again, we've tried to model this on, you know, based on our experiences in other legislation, but you know, we're as we've indicated in the document that we put out, inviting public comment on it. We're certainly open and interested to you know, receive feedback on the various operational elements in the draft legislation.
Will do. Thank you.
I'm sorry, you cut out there.
Oh, I was just saying we will file comments, and thank you for the explanation.
Okay, thank you. I was trying to unmute Emily Penoyer, but you might be muted. I think you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. I had another question on the process for submitting comments with NEWMOA. Are there technical elements that the working group is seeking comment on specifically in the legislation that can be addressed in the comment period?
Well, again, we're encouraging broad comment. There were a few areas in particular that we highlighted when we published the notice, but we're trying to make sure that we're being thoughtful about what's covered, how it's implemented, timeframes, definitions. All those we would expect to receive comment on and encourage people to comment on.
Great, thank you.
Jen Peterson, you might be muted. If you are able to unmute yourself. Hold on, let me try to make sure I'm not muting you. Can you try unmuting yourself? Not having. I'll try again. It's I'm trying to unmute you, but it says you're muted as well. So can you see if you're still muted, Jen? Okay, I'll come back and see if we can get that addressed, but right now I can't get the mute off your microphone. Laura Spark, are you muted? Because I'm trying to unmute you as well, and I'm not able to unmute you.
So I'm myself. I'm not terribly good at this either. I was just wondering, yeah, we were very excited. I work with Clean Water Action on toxics issues. Is the definition of intentionally added that you wrote, one question that we had, and we weren't sure when we looked at the way it was written, whether it would include intentionally created PFAS, such as PFAS that are created during the fluorination of plastics.
Yep. Thanks for the question. And, again, the definition is, written to say, it's means PFAS added to a product or one of its components, or PFAS or precursors incidentally added to a product during its manufacture, processing, packaging, or storage. And it also includes any degradation byproducts of PFAS. So, if there are, gaps, obviously we'll, take comments on that if you identify gaps in that definition, but it's designed to cover those elements that I just read. And Laureen Hackett, I can't, are you able to unmute yourself? Your hand is up, but okay, I'm gonna try this again. I'm gonna go back to Jen Peterson here and see if I can, part of it is I don't know if we're all pushing the mute buttons and the unmute buttons at the same time, but
This is Lorraine. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, my question is on this proposal, how the process would work if it's all agreed upon. Do agencies like Department of Health or whatever present it to, committees, or do they need Senate sponsorship to go through the legislation and whatnot? How would that proceed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is model legislation. Each jurisdiction would, make its own decisions on it. This would be something that legislatures could use. This could be something that, people interested could use proposing it. But, our goal here is to develop thoughtful model legislation that jurisdictions can use, whatever their legislative processes are for adopting them. And we recognize that, each jurisdiction will have their own, but this is to provide the resources for jurisdictions that are interested in taking some of the concepts here that have been developed in this draft model legislation.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let's see. I'm going to go back here again and see if we can find some additional commenters. Jen Peterson, I think we're in sync. All right.
Thanks, Marty. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I just want to comment that I think this is a great idea to try and have standard legislation across the New England states. As you're aware, Massachusetts has just filed an omnibus PFAS bill. I haven't compared them word for word, but I suspect there are slight differences. And so I guess my question was along the lines of the same commenter. Would NEWMOA be participating in our legislative process to suggest this as an alternative to the language that's in the proposed omnibus bill?
Right now, what we're doing is we are, this is still obviously a draft proposal. And again, we're trying to develop model legislation that will be helpful to whatever, to jurisdictions that would like to use it. We have a fair amount of work to do right now. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of comments. We're going to want to make sure we're being thoughtful about those comments and, make sure that we can put out the best model legislation we can. At that point, there will be opportunities for each of the jurisdictions to think about where it goes next. But, we certainly want to support jurisdictions that are trying to deal with the PFAS issue.
Okay, thank you.
I can't unmute Paul Warren. I don't know if Paul Warren, you can unmute yourself if you'd like to make a comment. Okay. Scrolling here and just trying to see if anybody else's hand is raised, and I'll also going to try one more time with Paul Warren. Are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, I was not able to succeed on that. Elna Nilsson, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I was wondering how this model legislation relates to the existing PFAS legislation in Maine. There are a lot of similarities, but also differences.
Yeah, again, this group was, drafting this legislation based on its experiences with the other legislation that Matt Chapman, commented on, whether it's mercury or other products. I'm assuming that we're going to get comments about, about the type of question you've raised, but this is NEWMOA and the work group's best effort to consider how to address PFAS in consumer products. I don't know if Christopher Sidney can unmute. Says muted by an organizer. I'm trying to unmute Christopher Sidney in case Christopher would like to make a comment. Having a hard time doing that. We got one question for about do we have a timeline for finalizing the draft? And our intent is to, well, we are taking comment through June 29th. It's going to take us some time to work through those comments. So I would expect that, we'll use the balance of the summer to make sure that we are considering those comments and making whatever adjustments may be necessary based on those comments. I got another question about what is the plan. This is for disseminating the model when the process is completed. And what we will do is we will make it a point to when the process is completed to post the finalized model legislation on our website and make sure that we're letting all of you and the public know that it's completed. We got one question about, and I would encourage the parties to comment on this, about many pharmaceuticals containing fully fluorinated carbon atoms which would meet the PFAS definition. Encourage people to, if they want to follow up on that, to highlight that. We've got a question from Paul Warren. What is the process to gain acceptance of unavoidable use? Again, I'd encourage you to take a look at section 6, where there are a number of steps. What Matt Chapman highlighted was that the product has to have a benefit to the environment, public health, or public safety. No technically feasible alternative with less risk to human health or the environment. No non-comparable PFAS product at comparable cost, and that products are determined to have an unavoidable use must continue to notify, label, and take back PFAS added products. So we'll encourage you to comment further on that. And I'm looking to see if there are other hands up. Okay, I'm not seeing any new hands. You know, some of you, well, let me just make sure. I think we called on Laureen Hackett already, so I'm not sure if there is another comment there. Okay. Julia John, I think I just read one of your questions, and is this an additional comment that you'd like to offer?
You addressed my questions. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Okay. Gonna try one more time to unmute Christopher Sidney. Christopher, if you're there and you can unmute yourself, it's showing on my screen that your mute button is on. That may be an error in the system, but yeah, not able to get that unmuted. Okay, I'm going to scroll through one more time, and then I'm going to look one more time through the questions. And again, you know, we're really encouraging people to file their comments with NEWMOA at the site that we've identified. Okay, we got one comment from Tristan Gardner. In section 9 and maybe others, ensuring that education should also include convenient and equitable access for communities. So we will note that comment. Okay, Matt Osicki had a follow-up comment saying that in general, risk-based definitions are preferred versus blanket prescriptive definitions that potentially inhibit innovation. We will note that comment. Tristan Gardner also made the comment that instead of beneficial, changing it to not harmful to the environment and work health. We'll note that comment. Okay, Christopher Sidney wasn't able to unmute, but he did raise his question, trying to better understand why NEWMOA took this on. Was it at the request of a member state? What is unique or different here? Again, this was something that our board of directors, you know, started talking about last year, as Matt Chapman indicated, you know, the idea of developing approaches that could be adopted by multiple jurisdictions to you know, avoid the situation of varying obligations by state was one of the goals trying to achieve, you know, use of an interstate clearinghouse and other such mechanisms to make compliance, you know, consistent and easier to understand. But we will look forward to your comments on this issue. And then, you know, again, the comment period is June 29th, 2023. Is this the only round of public comments NEWMOA will be soliciting? Yeah, this is the opportunity here that, you know, we'd like to take advantage of. You know, we have provided 60 days. Got a question here for provisions for protecting trade secret information in the comment period. I think that's an important issue to highlight. And we, you know, obviously this statute or this model legislation is, you know, done, you know, in the context of, you know, state laws that also apply. But if you're making particular suggestions what on trade secrets, you know, we would welcome those comments. So with that, I don't hear any more hands up or see any more hands up. And with that, if there are no other questions or comments, what we will do is we will again, you know, encourage you to file the comments in the way that is spelled out both on our website and in the presentation Matt Chapman provided. We want to thank you all very much for your time and attention today. And we look forward to continued engagement as we continue to consider this important issue. Once again, thank you very much. Matt, I don't know if there's any other last closing words you want to provide or. Okay, in that case, thank you all very much. And again, we will post this recording on our website.